the most useful resources that will take you from zero to fluency in the English language. Before we begin, keep in mind that I've tried pretty much every single English learning tool and English learning application that you could possibly think of. I've tried them all, believe me. And the recommendations that I'm going to give in this video, they're a representation of the applications and the tools that I've had the best experience with personally myself. Now, if you want to learn English, there are 6 main skills that you need to focus on, which are vocabulary, grammar, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So let's get into the best resources for vocabulary. It's going to come down to 2 main resources that I would recommend. Both are completely free and easy to use, and that would be Anki and Quizlet. Both of them are pretty straightforward. You can create flashcard decks and you can simply test yourself and quiz yourself using these flashcard decks that you customize and that you create. Very easy to customize these decks to your specific lifestyle and the vocabulary that you want to learn. However, I would say Anki is a little bit more useful than Quizlet in my experience. The application Anki implements the spaced repetition method a little bit more into its application. Simply put, this means that the words that you struggle with the most will be fed to you more often, and the words that you're more comfortable with will be presented to you less often. So learning new words and adding them to the deck is easy, but the purpose of using Anki or Quizlet is just so you can actually retain and remember the words that you learn. I recommend using either one of these applications for free because every day, if you just spend a little bit of time, you can add new words to your deck and you can practice the new words that you added to your deck cumulatively over time. Let's get into grammar resources. When it comes to grammar, it really depends on your level for which resource you should be using. I would say that if you're at the A1, A2, or B1 levels of English, you should absolutely, if you haven't already, use a grammar book in your native language that outlines the differences between your native language and the English language. By going through a book like this, it will explain to you the figure of speech in English and how it differs from your native language. Doing this is going to make the English language so much more clear for you. It's going to put together all of the pieces of the puzzle together in your head, and it's going to make practicing all of the other skills, being vocabulary, reading, writing, listening, or speaking, a million times easier. I cannot really make you a recommendation if you're going to get a grammar book in your native language teaching you English, because it depends on what your native language is. However, I'm pretty sure it would be very easy to find these grammar books just by using the internet. Now, if you're at the B2, C1, or C2 levels of English, I would highly recommend actually using a grammar book in the English language that will reform your grammar in the English language. If you were to get a grammar book like this in English, I would recommend the McGraw-Hill grammar books. I've used them for other languages and they were very useful and they worked very well for me. Now, when it comes to reading resources, there are 2 paths that you could go. The first one would be the traditional path, which is reading books. Now, if you want to read books, that's cool, but the most important thing is that you're actually reading something that's at your current level of English. Now, with the technology that we have today, there are applications out there that make it extremely easy to give you content to read that's at your current level of English. I've used 2 of these applications in the past that I'd be comfortable recommending. The first one is LingQ, which is very simple to use. It will feed you content about various topics at your current level of English. And if you don't understand a word, you can just click on it and it will show you the meaning. The other application is called LanguageTalk, which just came out with a new AI feature, which essentially does the same thing, but at a more advanced level. Now, I've had good experiences with both of these applications, and they're both very easily accessible as they both have free versions. If I had to recommend one over the other, I would highly recommend LanguageTalk actually, just because their AI features are a lot more advanced than the AI features on the link you. If you want to try it completely for free, I'll leave a link somewhere in the description or the pinned comment below. Now, when it comes to writing resources, there are two paths that I would recommend. One would be the traditional path of journaling. You can simply do this just by using the Notes application on your phone or any sort of Google Doc or Microsoft Word document on your computer. You could simply just practice expressing yourself about literally anything. It could be a thought provoking question. It could be your opinion about something, maybe a video that you just watched. It could be literally about anything. The spell check tools will help correct your grammar when you make a spelling mistake or a sentence that doesn't seem to make sense with the English figure of speech. This traditional method of journaling does work if you want to use it, but with the technology that we have today, it would be a lot easier to have a text or typed conversation with artificial intelligence or real native English speakers. You can use any platform of your choice for this, whether it be Language Talk or ChatGPT. You could simply just put in a prompt saying, "Hi, I would like to improve my English speaking skills. Can you please correct me on any of the grammatical mistakes that I make during this conversation?" And just from there, you could have a texted or typed conversation with an artificial intelligence bot. This is good for people at the beginner and lower intermediate levels. But if you're at the upper intermediate or advanced levels of English, I would actually recommend texting or typing to a real native English speaker who is going to use much more nuanced techniques of communicating in English. Artificial intelligence is better than nothing, but as of today, artificial intelligence cannot quite communicate the same way as a native English speaker. Now, when it comes to listening resources, I would really just recommend using English media with and without subtitles. If you're at the A1, A2, or B1 levels of English, I would recommend using subtitles for sure. If you're at the B2, C1, or C2 levels of English, I would actually recommend turning subtitles off when you're watching something in order to challenge yourself and force yourself to exercise your listening skills. This English media can come from literally anywhere, whether it's a YouTube video or a real movie or TV show if you have more time to spare. And if you have a lot less time to spare, it could even be a YouTube short video that's literally less than 10 seconds long. Now, when it comes to speaking resources, you can either use the traditional shadowing technique, artificial intelligence, or real life human interaction. Now, the shadowing technique is pretty simple. You just listen to a piece of English media and you simply repeat what you are listening to practice exercising your speaking skills. This has been proven to work over a very long period of time. I'd highly recommend just using this simple technique if you want to improve your pronunciation skills more specifically. If you want to actually improve your conversing skills by going back and forth in conversational situations, I'd recommend using artificial intelligence for people at the beginner levels or lower intermediate level. And I'd recommend using real humans online for people at the B2 level or upper intermediate level up to the advanced levels of English. Having a spoken conversation with an artificial intelligence robot is really good for beginners to get their feet wet and just practice experimenting and testing out and trying to use the English language as if they were speaking to a real person. But as your level of English advances and things get a little bit more nuanced and complicated, unfortunately, artificial intelligence is not going to do a very good job of helping you understand those nuanced versions of communication in the English language. In this case, it would be a lot better to use a real human being who is either fluent in English or a native English speaker. So to recap, the resource I would recommend the most for vocabulary would be Anki. The resource I would recommend the most for grammar would be a grammar book in your native language if you're at the beginner levels or lower intermediate level of English, or a grammar book actually in the English language to reform your grammar if you're at the B2 level or above. The best resource for reading, in my opinion, would be LanguageTalk's free artificial intelligence platform. The best resources for writing would be texting or typing to an AI robot or native speakers, depending on what your level of English currently is. The best listening resource would just be English media with or without subtitles, depending on your current level of English. And the best resources for speaking would depend on what you're trying to focus on. If you're trying to focus on pronunciation, use the shadowing technique. If you're trying to focus on conversational skills, I would use an AI robot or a real human online, depending on what your current level of English is. So I'm curious, what is your current level of English? Let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.